still adjusting to the time difference. And when you don't eat at night, then it doesn't bloat you in camera. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not know that. And so that was a big tip for me.
Masumi, I didn't realize that either. Everyone, we're having a sit-down conversation with Masumi, the star of the new film coming out, Yakuza Princess. Now, tell us about Sao Paulo, going there. This is your first time, right?
Yes, absolutely.
What was it like for you?
It was very beautiful country. People are warm there. I especially like the food there, but I didn't get to do a lot of sightseeing because the schedule was really tight. And a lot of times we had 2 days of off in a week. And those 2 days I had to go in and practice the movement. So I didn't get to spend a lot of time sightseeing, but I got to spend a lot of time with my production team, and they became like my family.
Okay, we're gonna talk about a couple certain scenes in there. No spoilers, of course. The club scene when you're singing. I think it was song 72, and it was your birthday. Was that you really singing that song? Because it was like, I think, a karaoke bar.
Right. That was my song that I wrote and produced, actually.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. But go ahead. Go ahead.
It wasn't. I recorded that song a couple years ago, and it was a song about basically like a fight song, and we thought it was fitting for Akemi to sing that song, except that because I wrote that song and it's my song, I kept wanting to make the song sound good and perfect, and my singer side wanted to take the stage, and Vicenci kept saying, no, Masumi, you're not a singer and you can't sing that way, you're drunk and you suck at singing. I was like, okay. So we tweaked a little things so I could sound a little less like a singer. And I would say that that was the most challenging part, to kind of not sing my song up to the best that it could sound.
So you sang the song not as Masumi, but as Akemi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the toughest part. But that's important, I guess, because I was Akemi, right?
Yes, you were. I was thinking as I heard you singing the song and watching, observing you, I thought, I said, I bet she performed this song. I just know she did. And the gentleman who invaded that particular space,
Right.
you and your friend handled them quite well.
Thank you so much. Handled him.
Yeah, that was a very interesting and funny scene. Now
Yeah.
you're right. Now the chemistry with Jonathan, because I'm looking at the film and I'm looking at, these are two people on a parallel path. You're finding out who you are, Akemi is, and then he's trying to remember who he was, which I thought of the Bourne Identity, those particular films. So working with Jonathan, what were some of the, I would say, the funnier portions that you could tell us that happened on set?
Jonathan was funny. He's also, he's always just cracking jokes, and just being around him was so, because this movie is, a lot of dark feelings, heavy feelings is the majority of it. So it was he was just a ball of light, being on set. It's this very heavy feeling, a lot of fighting and a lot of feeling angry and sad. And then right when it's cut, you just, Jonathan just around all the time. And it was really great to have him on set.
He just made it light.
Yeah,
that's good. That's a sign of a good actor, making everyone else around them comfortable to slip into the character. Now, this particular film happens 20 years ago, and then we see you. How did you study the character when we don't see her? We see her as a baby, and then she grows up. How did you develop that part of your character? Did you have to go into like when you were little, or build it up and imagine it?
Well, I never think of my personal experience too much, because I wanted to keep it separate, but I did create a lot of memories for Akemi. And that feeling of having this sort of this faint memory of being born in Japan, but then it's not a very clear memory, and you're sort of lost with who you are right now in this Brazil. You don't feel quite like Brazilian, quite like Japanese, and this sort of confusion. I felt like I knew what that was like, so I created a lot of memories around that.
Right. Can we talk about the I would say the supernatural part of the film?
Mhm.
At least for me, I saw some very supernatural parts of the film, especially the sword. The sword reminded me of one of those martial arts animes. I thought of a demon sword.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell us a story about the sword? And before we do that, this is something I had to bring it on. I had to bring it on air. I have had this thing for like 40 years.
Oh, wow.
My little katana had for 40 so years. So
Wow.
yeah, you made me bring it out. So let's talk about the sword in the in the film, the katana in the film.
mean, the story of Muramasa is
Yes.
it's the name is not the same, but we do have that
Mhm.
story being sort of like a myth in Japan. And I've talked about it with my dad too, and it's an interesting story. The Muramasa in the movie is the reason why me and Shiro are sort of having to form an uneasy alliance, although I do not trust him and he probably doesn't trust me either. So it's an interesting symbolic figure in the movie.
And you willed it very well.
Oh, thank you so
You know,
much.
and when they take you to, when you're finding out and they take you to that secluded place where the other Yakuza, I guess those old bosses were,
Uh-huh.
and you're walking through it was the graveyard, and there was one picture you saw and you were saying, how could this be? How could this be? I'm not going to give it away, but was that part of the supernatural aspect of the film too? Because that reminded me of something supernatural. I mean, the way they filmed it, they shot it, and your response to it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's meant to be vague, it's meant to be something like kind of like where you never know where the truth is. You never know what the truth is. And I think that's what's cool about the way it was told, because it's kind of like Akemi's trying to find this truth, but the more she chases it, the more confusing it becomes. And sometimes life is like that. The truth of things is not as clear as you want it to be. And so you have to make your own decision. You have to come up with your own answers and commit to it. And I think that's what Akemi does. And that's what I do with my life too. And so that's the empowering part of Akemi's story, I think.
Right. Now, after the film wrapped, what did you guys all do to celebrate? If you can tell us, of course.
I went to bed.
What?
Yeah, I think I was so exhausted when the shoot was over, because again, it was 90% of night shoots. That means we're shooting from midnight to 6 a.m. 90% of the time, doing the action scenes between those hours 90% of the time. I mean, that was really going against of the natural cycle of your body, right? So when it ended, I think we were all very exhausted, and what we wanted to do was rest. And we were in Paranapiacaba, which is not in the city. It was 2 hours away from the city, where it was very remote. Hot water was not readily available. It was that kind of area. So all of us just went home and used the hot water that we could, and then went to bed.
Very monumentous, I should say.
Yeah.
You've seen the final print. Did all of you get together to watch the final print, or was it more of a private thing?
It was a very private thing, yeah.
Okay. Now, seeing yourself for the very first time on the big screen,
Mhm.
how did you feel? Take us right back to that feeling. How did you feel and say, I did this?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was kind of a surreal feeling, right? I never saw myself in the playbacks, so that was like really the first time I saw myself acting. in the screen. And I would say that I just felt this immense pride. I was like, wow, I did this. I did that.